Do you wish you weren't so influenced by what other people thought and felt about you? Well, you can be, and you're in the right place because this podcast is for you. There's a big difference between an internal scorecard and an external scorecard. I feel like in life, especially growing up, we're taught to get validation through external sources, and that's a very common thing. I think also if kids have unmet needs in childhood, that can make it very challenging to get that scorecard and that validation externally. For example, there's some basic needs, 4 basic needs that we all really need to have and as a child. And that is I am loved, I am safe, I am enough and worthy, and I belong. And those 4 things are really important for us as children. The interesting thing is most of us have some sort of experience and some sort of child processing experience that has created challenges in those areas. So let me give you some examples. If growing up you didn't feel like you were loved, then it's as an adult it can be very common to always be trying to get that love. And if you don't have it, to punish yourself or something like that. Another thing is I am safe. If you chronically do not feel safe, it creates anxiety. I am enough and worthy. If you don't feel enough or worthy, it can cause depression. It can cause all sorts of challenges with that. I belong. If you think you're fundamentally different from humanity, that can cause lots of challenges, depression, anxiety, addiction, all sorts of things. So those 4 things are really important to us. And I want to give you an example of how the lifeguard part of our brain and the lawyer part of our brain can collude and make this even worse. For example, let me just review. We have a lifeguard part of our brain that's always trying to keep us safe, and we just need to know it's there. Then we have the lawyer part of the brain that whatever we tell it, whatever beliefs we have, is going to find validation. But it's not a bad or a good lawyer. It's going to look for the evidence for whatever we tell it. Let's talk about this. So let's say as a child you had one of the parents leave you when you were young and you felt you adopted an idea, a belief that you were unlovable. So the lifeguard as an adult is going to want to protect you from taking risks because it's going to be like, hey, that's not safe. You don't want to experience that. And then the lawyer part, because you've adopted a belief that says I'm unlovable, is going to remind you of all the times in your life and all the times in your current experience to prove that, because the lawyer's whole job is to prove what you tell it, what belief you give it. And so that can be very, very challenging as adults. Another example is, let's say you felt that you were the unfavored child. And so you've adopted a belief that I don't belong or I'm different or something like that. The lifeguard part of your brain is going to want to keep you safe and want to keep you from situations where you may even find belonging. And the lawyer part of your brain is going to validate that belief and just say, yeah, you are different. Look at this. Look at that. You don't belong. And let me just tell you a few things about those beliefs. First of all, we are all loved and treasured. And I think it's so important to know that if we do not feel loved, it's not because we were unloved. It's because the person that we've adopted that belief from was unable to give us love. They were not love able. Every child, every person in the world is lovable. I am safe. That is a super important belief to really think about. And we can reprocess that and know that God is with us and create safety within ourselves. I am not enough. Well, God says you're more than enough. And I belong. Well, we're all kind of like, we all are messed up and we all have our challenges and we're all such beautiful people. And we're all human. We all have all sorts of crap we've been through and we're all amazing treasures of God. And so everybody belongs. Everybody. So it's very important to know that instead of getting those validations from an external scorecard is to get it from an internal scorecard. I think Jesus was a great example of this. I mean, let's look at the Bible. It's kind of funny because you look at Jesus and people thought he was crazy. They thought he was demon possessed. They thought he was a liar because he claimed to be the savior. A lunatic. So everybody, I would say like a lot of people had different thoughts about him, but he knew who he was and he knew what he was there for. And he knew that internal scorecard, and that how he felt about himself and his connection with God is what matters. And we can do that for ourselves in a couple different ways. So as adults, we have the ability to not be a product of our circumstance, but to use our frontal lobes, not the lawyer or the lifeguard part of our brain, but to choose differently. We can completely change the way we've been basically programmed in our belief systems. And this is super important because God hates it when we've been through destruction, sad things, childhood challenges, abuse, neglect, all sorts of things. He hates that. And he never ever wants to limit you or have that wasted, that pain wasted with you. And so we have the ability to change that as adults. We can live past that, and that is just amazing. Would you like to start your Live Brighter journey with some free printable affirmation? There's nothing like reminding yourself of God's truth about you. Click the link below. So let's talk about how we do that. We can do that because we can meet our own needs ourselves, and that is with God's help. So what I would really encourage is, instead of trying to get all of that validation, all of those unmet needs, all of that from an external scorecard, to do it from an internal scorecard. And how that starts is downloading another part of your brain, instead of the lawyer and lifeguard, to download something that is more beneficial to you. And that would be either the friend, I call it, the cheerleader, it could be the loving parent, or the Jesus download. And what I mean, let me give you an example. So I first started with the Jesus download. So I'd come from a 22 years destructive marriage that had a lot of programming that really, I felt like I wasn't enough, I wasn't worthy, all sorts of challenges that came out of that. And so I had to really understand Jesus in a different way, rather than how I'd been used in religious abuse, how God hates divorce, all sorts of stuff, use it for manipulation and control. I had to read the Bible and the New Testament for myself. And what I realized is Jesus is super compassionate and caring. And all throughout the Bible, it talks about how his biggest frustration with humanity is that they're not loving the widows and orphans in their distress, and they're being unkind to each other, and all of those sorts of things, and that abusive situation that's going on. And so when I saw the compassion in Jesus, I downloaded more his word, that the Jesus part, not the, hey, you're bad, you've done wrong, I'm going to thump you on the head, fix it up, because that wasn't accurate. So I read the Bible, the New Testament, and saw how caring and loving and gracious he was, and been like, okay, I need to just download that part, because I am used to being critical to myself. I'm used to feeling not enough. I'm feeling like I need to serve all the time. I'm all of these things that were not really accurate. So just aligning it with what Jesus is and who he is, and what his Bible, like, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. I have great plans for you. I have plans of a future of success, the plans, forgetting what lays behind and stretching forward to the future, and just really reprogramming my brain that way. I also downloaded the kind friend. And for me, I actually even gave her a name, Christy, because that's my middle name, but really started talking to myself in the way that a kind friend would. And really started being like, okay, just really being more intentional about, okay, these are my thoughts. And as a kind friend, I would be saying this to myself, and I'm going to choose that. So that was very interesting to me, and really just changed my life, to be honest. So nobody, when they're at their deathbed, says, gosh, I should have worked harder to get others' approval. Really, they say that I should have worked harder to meet my own approval, and to be my own person, and to do what God put in my heart to do. So that's super important. I am a life coach, and I'm also a realtor. So I want to give you an example of the internal and external scorecard. To run my business, I could be like, okay, my job is to make my clients happy and have that external scorecard. The challenge is I have very little control over their emotions and their things. I do have an internal scorecard, and my internal scorecard has things like we will communicate consistently, so we have systems in place for that. We will speak honestly, because my job isn't to necessarily please my clients, it's to give them the best information so they can make the best decision for them. So I had to really reframe my brain in all areas of my life, including my real estate business, and really keep track of that internal scorecard, and that's what matters. So take some time and think about, like, do you have some unmet needs from your childhood? That I am loved, I am safe, I am not enough, I belong, and really analyze that. And there are ways to fill in those gaps as the kind parent, the loving parent of, like, and the way you do that one is basically to go back and see yourself at the younger version and kind of comfort that younger child of you who is really trying their best. So download the friend, the loving parent, Jesus, or the kind coach, or whatever you need to start retraining your brain. We don't want to let our past dictate our present, especially when it's not serving us and it's not healthy. So that is what I have for you. So do what God has put in your heart to do. Enjoy your internal scorecard. Every day, grow 1% each day. That's what I have for you today. If you want more information, you can go to livebrighterwithtara.info. Make it a great day.